into its ninth day and there's no end in sight. But our next guest says there are hidden costs to this shutdown that will be felt after furloughed federal employees are even back on the job. Chris Herper is a professor at the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. He was part of a study that looked at the impact of a shutdown for people beyond just worrying about missing a paycheck. This is so fascinating. So Chris, thanks for coming on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm always interested in the how. So explain to us how you did this research, how you conducted it, and who you surveyed.
Right. So me and my co-authors on this study from Emory University and Stanford got really interested in shutdowns after the 2019-2020 shutdown in the first Trump administration. And we figured out that we can build an enormously powerful data set through Freedom of Information Act requests that we sent to the government that essentially created a panel spanning hundreds of millions of observations tracking every government employee quarter by quarter. And what we were interested in is what does it do to these employees when they get affected by a shutdown, when they get furloughed? And through some statistical work, we were able to identify that employees that are being sent home, that are furloughed, are substantially more likely to leave their job afterwards within about 2 years, meaning that after they return to work and the shutdown itself is over, there's like a hidden sort of trickle of human capital that leaves the government that hurts it for years to come.
Okay, so it sounds like a brain drain, a loss of talent. What are some of the other consequences that people may not be thinking about?
Yeah, like a brain drain describes it really well. So what is important to keep in mind is that the federal government is ultimately just a very large organization. And just like any large corporation, there are functions that are the same in the government as in the private sector, be it legal and human resources or R&D. And the government is ultimately competing for the human capital with the private sector. And partly it relies on people being highly intrinsically motivated to work for the government rather than go out there and make potentially more money in the private sector. And what the shutdown does, what the furlough in particular does to people is it undermines their morale. And our paper is able to tease out just how bad this shock is in dollar terms. And we estimate that being furloughed is equivalent for the morale of the employees to a salary cut by about 10 percentage points. So this is massive. And after these employees are leaving, we see that the agencies that they leave behind start to perform worse. That means that there's more errors happening, there's less output happening. For example, legal departments and the EPA are less successful in bringing their lawsuits. And there isn't even any savings for the government in this. You might say, oh, I don't like the federal government. I want it to shrink. So these people leaving might have some costs, but at least we shrink the government. Well, what we find is that for every dollar you save by not employing a full-time federal employee, you spend $2.50 hiring an outside contractor that works in the so-called shadow government.
And how were you able to, I guess, measure the impact in terms of the length of the shutdown? So we're in the ninth day. Is there a way to quantify what that will translate to?
Unfortunately, this is beyond the scope of what we were doing, but having to sort of speculate a little bit, I would say that longer shutdowns should have larger effects simply because the pain becomes larger on the sides of the employees. They have more time to realize the negative effects of being furloughed. And so my guess would be that longer shutdowns cause more of this loss of human capital. But that is like very hard to estimate statistically with the setup that we had.
Yeah, and it's also fascinating. And I think this shutdown is different and unique in the sense that it comes on top of some of the furloughs that we saw through DOGE already when you speak of losing those with unique expertise in their fields.
You're absolutely right. This is a big question mark for us when we try to extrapolate from our 2013 findings to the current shutdown. There could be an argument that could go along the lines of, hey, all the people who were close to quitting anyway, all the people who were thinking about retiring anyway, they took the initial buyout offer in spring. And if this is the case, then the people who are left behind are the people who are sort of die-hard civil servants who will just, swallow the bitter pill and they will keep being employed, which would speak to a smaller effect this time. But there's also a narrative where you could say, this could be the final straw that breaks the camel's back. These people have been through so much. They've been under fire for 6 months. And so adding a shutdown as insult to injury might push even more people out of the federal workforce than before. This is something that we cannot really measure until the new data comes out in a few months. And it's a very interesting question.
Well, when you have that data, we welcome you to join us again. Very fascinating what you've been able to share with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Chris Herper.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
We'll be right back.